Students will be dashed on their reading and writing abilities through question papers dashed by the government. Yeah, please remember we need the most effective word. So we can safely eliminate option 2 because the first word is not in the right form, right? Students will be kept on there. Calculated also is not the most effective word. We're talking about reading and writing abilities. So calculated would again not be the right word. Right? I have to choose between judged, evaluated and tested. Students will be judged on their reading and writing abilities. Again, there is no question of judgment here. We are more inclining towards evaluation or test. Right? Assorted again is not the most effective word. Again, we have to choose between 3 and 4. Right? Between 3 and 4, though both the blanks in the first option appears to be correct, what's the closest one? What about the second one? Is it asked by the government or provided by the government? What's the right one here? Yes. The most appropriate one is not 4. Students will be tested on their reading and writing abilities through question papers provided by the government, not asked by the government. Right? In terms of collocation also, it sounds right. Option 3. Evaluated, tested is the closest one. However, in the second blank, the most or the better or a effective word is provided and not asked. Colloquially. But some people need to still are having problems with that. Quickly to just give, no, the problem is, when you say asked or provided, usually when you say asked, the word is used when you want something, right? When you're seeking an answer to something or you're seeking information about something. The government is not seeking an answer or information from the students. It is providing them certain questions so that they can be tested on these abilities. Are you following? So you need to understand, just to explain for Amrendra, when you say I asked something, you're seeking an answer to a question. Right? Or you're seeking information about something. So in the context, the government is not looking for answers from the students about anything. It's not seeking for information or it's not seeking an answer to a question, right? In a broader sense. Rather, the questions are designed and provided by the government. So in the context here, provided is a more effective word. I hope that answers your question. It's pretty much the same, right? Here, like I said, it's the government is not looking for information from the students. The students are not going to help the government in this scenario. So the government is just setting the papers for them and they are responding to it. Right? The budget announced substantial dash of dash to critical sectors like education and healthcare. Option A, expenditure, capital. Option B, sanction, initiative. Option C, allotment, security. Option D, disbursement, investment. Option E, allocation and resources. Okay, now let's quickly look at each option, rule out the possibility of the wrong ones, and then we can arrive at the right one, right? So let's look at A, expenditure and capital. Now there is a clue word in the context. Can somebody quickly identify that keyword, I would say, right? The budget announced substantial dash of dash to critical sectors like education and healthcare. The clue word is budget. Now what is budget? I'm sure most of you know, right? When I say budget, budget is nothing but it's intended expenditure, right? For a given period, right? So for this particular period, so let's say, even if once you get into family life, right? When you're running the family, you will set a budget for this month. This is the budget allotted, right? And that's how we need to spend within the budget allotted. So budget is intended expenditure for a given period, right? Now, if I'm saying the meaning of budget is intended expenditure, right? The budget announced substantial expenditure again seems a little redundant for me if you ask me, even though it seems okay, right? Seems very redundant for me. Of capital. Now, what is capital? Capital is money. There are different meanings for capital in various contexts, but capital is basically money invested, right? Now, when you invest in something, It can be invested in a corporation, or in this particular case, whatever it is. But when you say capital, you're talking about money invested. So when you say money invested, right? For me, if I'm investing in something, which means I am looking for some sort of a return, right? I need some sort of a gain, right? I'm looking for some sort of a financial return or some sort of a benefit. Now, in this case, is the budget looking for some sort of a gain or financial benefit? Not really, right? Though it seems okay as an okay option, I can't really go with option A, because the budget, which is intended expenditure, announced substantial expenditure of capital to critical sectors, is not very, very convincing to me as an option. The budget announced substantial sanction. What is sanction? Sanction means approval, right, or permission. Now, is that a related word in the context? Not really. Out. Right? I'm keeping A as an option, but I'm completely eliminating B, because sanction is not the right word in the first blank. So I'm not even looking at the second blank. Option C, allotment. So when I say I'm allotting something, I'm assigning it as a portion, right? So just to give you an example, I can say, okay, I'm allotting 5 minutes to Pooja. She can go ahead and question me, right? An amount of time that's allotted to assign as a portion. That's allotment. Again, the budget announced substantial allotment of security. The second blank seems very vague, right? It's not very clear in terms of what sort of a security is it going to provide for critical sectors like education and healthcare. So I'm not going to fall on that option. Option D, disbursement. What is the meaning of disbursement? Distribute. Right? So the budget announced substantial disbursement, distribute of investment. Again, doesn't make sense. We already saw investment means you are committing some sort of money or capital, but in order to gain a financial return or a future advantage or benefit. That's not the right context here. Out. So let's look at our final option. The budget announced substantial allocation. Now, what's the meaning of allocation? When I say allocation, I'm saying you're setting apart something for a specific or a special purpose. To set apart for a special purpose. And in this case, we already saw the meaning of budget, intended expenditure, which means for this particular purpose is why this budget is created. And in the context, we already know that. What is it for? Critical sectors like education, healthcare. And then resources seems more appropriate, right? So the budget announced substantial allocation of resources to critical sectors like education and healthcare. Yeah, so I would go with option E, right? The only reason I will kind of not look at option A is because it sounds redundant for me. Capital, knowing the meaning of capital, and expenditure, which is again intended expenditure. So I'm not going to go with that. Expenditure also means expense. Yeah. So I'm going to go with answer option E. When organizations dash creativity and risk-taking, the usual method of maintaining order and dash are indeed shaken. What's the final arranged structure? It's the same, whatever Hari has put down only. C, B, G, A, F, D. Madam, this question is from workbook. The answer is given as A. Unable to understand the usage of decorum. And in the question order is given, so I am thinking that in the second blank the answer should be supply. Order and supply sounds good for me, ma'am. And agreeing with organizations encourage creativity and not enhance. Yes, there could be a possibility, Rahul. No doubt. Because that's also a good sequence. Like it has a very logical, coherent structure to it, AFD. Okay, so basically Chandrahas Yadav says, I think it should be D and not A. What do you guys have to say? Any other options for this? See, one of your clue words for the first blank is the creativity and risk-taking thing itself, right? When you are in an organization, you are given opportunity to be creative in your work and you can take risks. But there is a repercussion. There could be a side effect because of that, right? Or there could be results that may not be favorable to everybody involved, the stakeholders. And you have, for the second blank, you have the antonym hint word and you have order, which is again your clue, right? So what is the meaning of decorum? That's one of the questions that somebody asked, right? Decorum means some sort of a proper behavior, right? Proper conduct, right? As is most appropriate. Yeah, something that is in line with what the company wants, right? When I say, let me put it here. When I say decorum, I am referring to some sort of a proper behavior or conduct. You know, you conduct yourself in the right manner, in the way that is expected of you, right? So when organizations dash creativity, not exhibit, because durability again is an incorrect word choice in the second blank. Humility again doesn't make logical sense in the second blank. Now order and supply could be a collocation. That doesn't mean it is appropriate in this context, right? We are not talking about some sort of a sales perspective, right? The context is referring to something else here. So order and supply, yes, it's a collocation, but not appropriate in this context. So you can safely eliminate option D. Production propagate also. So the right option is, when organizations encourage creativity and risk taking, the usual method of maintaining order and decorum are indeed shaken. So there is a high possibility of, when you allow people to, okay, you know, you do whatever you want, take your chances, take risks, try this, try that, you may not meet deadlines, people might go overboard, right, do things that could affect, you know, even certain projects or clients' perspective, things like that, right? So there could be something that can be shaken. So the right answer is A and not D. Yeah.